Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday stream. I'm a little horrified right now because I just had a spider crawling up my blanket. Kind of shook it off and it's just run off under the floor by the looks of things. Ugh, hate spiders. Hate them even more when they're on me. It's one of them like little mini tarantula looking things. Not quite sure what species it is. It wasn't like a steatoda or anything. It was like a tiny little mini tarantula, only about a centimetre across, but I felt it crawling up my leg. Ugh. Too big to be a jumping spider. But now that horror is out of the way, hello. So what have I been up to? I have been doing some performance profiling on the Galaxy, and I've been rejigging a few bits and pieces. I just grab that. So I've been trying to essentially get the Galaxy generating as quickly as possible, because where we've got 27 sectors generating in a 3x3x3 cube, if you add just one more layer to that, then you're up to something like 56 or 64 layers sectors. It's huge, so it goes up exponentially the more layers you add. And you know, when it gets to even 3 layers in the cube, you're looking at something like 17 seconds to generate 350 odd sectors, and that's only a view distance of 350 light years, which is nowhere near far enough for what we want to achieve. I believe the closest or the furthest star in Orion, I think, is about 1300 light years away. So you know, we need to see at least that far to be able to render the known constellations in the game. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to give each class of star its own generation cube. So whilst we'll still have our 100 light year cubes, which are our sectors, and those will sort of be our political sectors, when we're generating the actual stellar data, we'll do that on a class-based way. So with, say, a B-class star, they're relatively rare. You're not going to have more than a couple per sector. So, you know, in that instance, we can render them out thousands of light years away without taking up, you know, much render time. So, with that in mind, I was trying to offload some of this onto the background thread, which isn't happy because we are using this really inefficient reading of the render target. So this is the Galaxy map. So this is it's basically this. So this is our 2D map of the Galaxy, and that's what gives us our stellar densities. Each pixel corresponds to a sector, which is why it's 1000 by 1000. But to read that data is quite slow and breaks if you run it on the background thread. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the pixel value before running through and generating all the sector details, because something that it was doing is it was reading the texture here, and it was reading the texture again here. So rather than hitting that texture multiple times and incurring what is about a 20 millisecond hit, we do it once, store the value, and then go back to it. Don't go back to it again. And there's going to be a few cases where those sorts of optimizations are going to be needed. There was another one I did as well. I can't remember where I did it now. Oh yeah, it was here. So we have our ship location, and then we have the middle of the sector that the ship happens to be in. But then aside from that, we also have the midpoint of the sector we're working with, and indeed its sector ID. So again, I'm generating those outside of the main bulk of data so that we're not having to do that math multiple times. So we do it once, we store the value, and we don't have to do it again. It has sped it up a little bit, but I'm still not happy with the generation speed. I want to get it down to sort of sub 10 milliseconds if I possibly can. So we shall see. So aside from that, I have also been doing some more of the framework. So where I have these templates, what I've been doing is I've been covering these templates with the floor structure as well, so all the attachment points for the floor panels. So I've been drawing those out as a template in their own right. So as I go through and create what is essentially the ceiling of the deck below, I can literally just drop them in place because I've already calculated their location based on the 2D template. So one of the things I shall be doing this evening is I'll be starting to carry that vertically downward into the D deck template, and we'll start actually mapping that out properly. Anasi, are EM signatures going to be a thing in the future? Power down certain systems to lower the EM emission to hide from enemies. I expect so, yes. I mean, it's the sort of thing that we will be simulating. It's a bit too early to say exactly how that's going to play into the gameplay in terms of hostile vessels and things. But yes, energy signatures and whether or not something can actually be seen by the sensors is definitely something we'll be looking at. And that'll also be connected to the sensors having variable performance based on their condition, their quality, and indeed the region of the galaxy that they're in. So we could have something, I don't know, like a magnetar nearby, which is completely throwing off your sensors. Or a nebula, which renders your sensors inoperative. So all those sorts of things will be things we look at, as we progress in development. Right then. So one of the questions I was asking myself, and if I hide some layers here, we can get a better picture of it. So get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. What layer are you? So you would be D-Deck sheet, so you can go there. So this is the basic layout of D-Deck. Now each one of these grey rectangles is a crew quarters, and they will be further subdivided into separate rooms. So you'll have like a bathroom there, a bedroom next to it, and then a living area on the other side. I imagine that's just going to be a 50-50 split. So you'll have 50% living area, 50% bedroom and bathroom. So I need to have a look at the number of wall panels that we're generating along the edge that has the door, and the same on this side as well. So this will also be a full segment, so it has to start there and there, and similar on this side. We can't go too close to this edge here, so we've got a 50 centimeter gap, which is part of the design rules. And then we have to distribute these segments accordingly, and hopefully evenly. But the challenge with this is that the width of the room goes beyond this nice orderly array of segments. So if all of these are the same size, then if the room ended there, that would be lovely, because it fits. You can divide those two rooms by that amount of segments, but it doesn't. It goes further than that. So just need to work out what I'm doing with the doorways, and like this room is going to have to be physically slightly different to this room because the doors are going to be in a slightly different position. So little things like that which just need to be worked out. I think for simplicity's sake, especially if we're splitting them down the middle, we may have to have the door there, 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 and there. I want these rooms to be as copy pastable as possible because there are many of them. But then we do need to address that problem as we go out through the rings, because all of these need to be segmented, and then deciding how much wall we're going to have here. That's the tedious design job that you have to do. The other thing I want to get done is start building closing the back of the ship. First, yes, definitely. So I've got a list of things that need to go into the next demo update. Making no head bob the default is definitely one of those things. Doing variable zoom and adding that to the menu, that's definitely something else that needs to be added. There was quite a long list, but I'll be working through those things once the two main jobs are done. And as we move into the bug fixing phase and the polishing phase of the patch, then I'll start knocking off those easy little things. Yeah, the crew facilities like laundry room and that sort of stuff is going to be at the back here. So one side is going to be for internal security, and they'll have like a little target range and that sort of thing. The brig, that'll all be in one section, and we'll have crew maintenance facilities on the other side. So things like 3D printers, washrooms, that sort of thing. I was also debating on whether or not some of that could be down the side here, because I've squeezed in an extra 12 quarters. What have we got here? So 6 there, 12 there. Yeah, so I guess that would be 24 overall. But we could use that space for other things if need be. One of the challenges with, if I turn on that, so one of the challenges with doing this section here is I'm going to have to regenerate this curved section, because if we take a look at the actual mesh itself, it doesn't line up with these 250 centimeter sections that I've added. So these are essentially one wall panel wide, and ideally the mesh needs to line up with those, just to make life a bit easier. So I shall have to take this shape and sort of re-extrude that down that line. Yeah, toilet-wise, so there's public toilets on every deck behind the main stairwell, and also every single crew quarters has its own toilets. So every public space, so like the mess hall here will have a bathroom, the bar on this side will have a bathroom, obviously the sick bay there will have a bathroom, the VIP lounge has a bathroom, A deck will have a bathroom, C deck behind the main stairwell will have a bathroom. So there are going to be multiple bathrooms per deck, including one in every crew quarters. So quite a lot. And yeah, you're right. We are essentially designing a small town here. So all of these rooms here. So if we consider this to be the housing area, then outside of the housing area, we need to have all the facilities that a small town would need. So, eateries, entertainment, things like laundrettes, all of it, all needs to be catered for, and all self-sufficient. Okay, this space here is going to be the hydroponics, and realistically, that is probably way too small for a ship of this size. I was looking at how much farmland you need, or how much square acreage you need for a crew of 200, and if that's the size of the ship, then the acreage needed kind of... Ooh, my computer is frozen. It really doesn't like being all the way on here. Yeah, so the square acreage is something like this much. That's how much farmland you would need for 200 people. It's absolutely madness. So obviously we don't have that much space. So we'll have vertical farming, and we'll just have to hand wave that a little bit. Yeah, that's where the 3D printers, or the organic 3D printers, come into play. So we grow the raw 3D printer food stock here, so essentially the protein source, and then we take that raw mulch and use it to print out the facsimiles of fruit and veg ready to be cooked. Okay, well, while I've got all this selected, I may as well go ahead and run that along there. So if we get rid of that a minute. So we want this edge here. Definitely is a valid path. What are you talking about? Or is it not? Am I missing a gap there somewhere? There we go. better. So the geometry is now lining up with the wall panels. So that should just make the modelling job a little bit easier. Just clean that up a bit. Yeah, docking ports wise, this is still ever so slightly up for debate, because the original plan was that we'd have a grid, a field generating grid underneath the ship where gravity would be generated for the whole ship all at once. So rather than having Star Trek style grav plating, you would have a gravitational field that encompasses the whole ship, which is a lot more realistic. But if that field is on the base of the hull there, then what do we do about the fact we've got stairs going all the way down? Which kind of messes with that idea. And also, if you have a gravitational field which affects the entire ship, then obviously if that ship is next to a station, then the gravitational field of the ship is going to interfere with the station, and the two are going to be pulled together. So you'll end up with the ship crashing into the station, or another ship if they're parked next to each other. So we need to have a think about what's practical with that. There are 4 docking ports on top, but that's for incoming vessels. They're not on the side of the craft. And the other thing to consider with a side-mounted docking port, so let's say we had a docking port here. If you think about the gross tonnage of this vessel and the amount of leverage that would put a docking port this big, so all this mass connected just here, the slightest amount of movement would rip that docking port straight off like it was butter. So it's not particularly practical to dock something this big to a station like that. So parking next to the station and taking shuttles is far more realistic. Yeah, I like the idea of having to park up next to something and then just take a shuttle across. Straighten this out a sec. Well, the Admiral's yacht is an interesting one because I've been thinking that it makes a lot more sense to have the Admiral's yacht as a vessel in its own right. So rather than being a shuttle-sized object that you can dock to the ship, it will be a small FTL-capable vessel that you would fly alongside instead, with its own small shuttle bay, perhaps with a single shuttle. So if you think of the Admiral's yacht as being sort of a diplomatic vessel, so you'd have the Admiral with his stateroom, a small staff to look after the Admiral's needs, a shuttle, sort of an Admiral shuttle in the shuttle bay. And then this Admiral's ship would sort of cruise up alongside something like the Magellan here, and then the Admiral would come across on his posh little shuttle. So fingers crossed this new piece lines up exactly with this, which it does seem to do pretty much, so that's good. Other plans for physicalized wiring and HVAC. Yeah, so the wiring is already physicalized in the game. Everything that currently has power has a physicalized wire attached to it. They are not physically routed yet, they're just sort of hanging in space, but they are connected together. The boxes are speaking to the wires, and the wires are providing voltage downstream. So all of that is already working in the game. HVAC will work the same way. And in fact, one of the reasons why I am segmenting the ship now. So before, one side of the corridor, the panels were offset from the other side. They weren't set segments. The reason I'm making them set segments is so that each one of these segments can have things like air pressure, temperature, quality, is it a vacuum, is it poisoned, is it on fire? By being able to have those flags present for each segment along the corridor, we can have things like properly modelled HVAC. So if the HVAC's not working in this corridor section, then things like fresh air and appropriately temperature air won't be flowing into these segments, so they'll start pulling temperature away from other segments. Yes, all that is on the way. Right, so what I need to do here is start chopping this based on what's there already. Be a small amount of fudging on this side to make it fit. A slight offset there. How far off are we? 6 centimeters. That's not bad over that length. we do that. Okay. This. Ever so slightly not lined up. You can see there's the tiniest little gap there. I mean, that must be talking like millimeters. Oh, less than half a millimeter difference. Which is a tiny gap, but annoying nonetheless. So it is something I will fix. None of that is needed. So what I'll do is I'll just I'll join these vertices together just to smooth all that off, solve that ever so slight misalignment. So this is also adhering to that same 250 centimeter mesh size, as is this one. So the idea behind that was that obviously each one of these could be a wall panel and a window, and it means that the window is going onto a flat face rather than going across faces. So it means that the corridor would be aligned with the wall, so the outer hull segments. However, pretty sure that's not how it worked out in practice. I'm willing to bet there's... Yeah, so that means that these would be the window. Oh, it's not too bad. I mean, ideally it would be nice to have a window there, sort of put a window at the end of the corridor, because it kind of extends the space. Sort of an architectural trick. I'll have a look at that when it comes to cutting out some window holes. Hey Oni Noni. So what I'm doing today is I am building the back of the ship, or at least I'm closing off the back of the ship, because there's still a significant amount of modelling that needs doing here to make it look good. But just to make it airtight, so there's no more falling through the ship. So on today's dev build, it should have an airtight behind. Fingers crossed. William Connors, if some fanboy wanted to use your ship model for non-commercial fan art and were willing to sign an NDA to that effect, how would you feel about that? We're not expecting people to sign NDAs. If you'd like to use the ship in a piece of fan art, then feel free. We're happy to support any non-commercial use of anything we've got here. We'll actually be making the SketchUp file available for download when it's finished. Although bear in mind that the SketchUp file won't be the complete ship in a sense, because it's just pieces. So you'll have to actually put all the pieces together. So like a build-it-yourself Lego kit almost. Yeah, regarding the aft cannons on the engines, I had an idea on that front. So if we consider an engine pod, and again, these are not the final engine pods, we've got the rear-facing engines and the front-facing engines, because we'll have engines that fire forwards as well, by slowing down and such. If we were to make these a bit longer, actually, where is the snipping tool? Right, so if we were to split the engines like this, so you've got engines firing this way, you've got engines firing this way, so exhaust, 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 and you can have a maintenance corridor running between them, so a corridor here, and engineering access can come up from below, either to this side or up through here, or up through here on this side, and that gives us this space in the middle here. So if this was to be a weapons placement, and we had the magazine and the capacitors and things here, then we can split the engine pods, in inverted commas, to be multifunction. So we'd have multiple access points. So we've got our engineering access, and the engineering access is going to hug the outer hull. Probably see it better if I turn off this bit and this bit. So the crew space is essentially this kind of salmony coloured area, and you can see you've got a corridor running around here, and then what is currently crew quarters around here. You've got the cutout for the fuel coils there, and then you've got this space behind everything, which is going to be the engineering space. So if we kind of duck down into here, again you can see that you've got the crew, general crew access through here, so a corridor that goes down back towards the shuttle bay, and on the other side of the wall you've got this access space here for the RCS hardware, which will be taking up this space. And as we move backwards, we've got the shuttle bay here, and then on the other side of the wall from the shuttle bay we can have access out into the engine pods, which I've turned off. So a bit like this. So through here, some kind of support structure, and that gets you into the engine pods. Now, if there's no reason why the general crew area can have a separate access into the engine pods, which doesn't give them access to the engineering space. So whilst the engineers have their own way into the engine pods, within the engine pod itself, it's physically separated. So you can have that can have that weapon placement on top, which is physically separated from everything else. Yeah, it all depends how big they are, really, and whether or not the engine pods are isolated from the rest of the ship on pylons, or whether or not they actually get built into the hull proper. Because we could have the engines as part of the hull rather than being out on pylons. Yeah, that is another option. We could definitely put something on the side here, so we could have like a turret there. And gimbal wise, its visibility would kind of its firing arc would be kind of like that, and obviously to the back. Once we start looking at how big the hardware needs to be, then we'll get a better idea for just how much space it needs to take up. Yeah, well, we definitely want them to be double-sided, because the main accelerating and slowing down aspect of the ship will be from the engine pods at the back. So we don't want to do a flip and a burn. We want to be able to just slow down. So in the same way that a commercial jet has a reverse function, obviously that flares the engines and redirects the flow. We'll just have a separate set of thrusters. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So commercial airliners have mechanical reversal. So if you've ever seen it, you have these like fins that pop out of the engine pods, and it kind of reverses the thrust. And I had a similar idea here, where you could have something where something comes down over the engines and reverses the thrust. But we have enough space just to have more engines. Yeah, if you had forward one way, reverse the other, then you've got like an offset of thrust, so it needs to be balanced. Yeah, I'm quite happy for this ship to have a flawed design, because the lore behind the ship is that this is an experimental vessel. So this isn't the the historic 5-year mission sort of thing. That's not this ship. This ship's the experimental version of that. It's the Pathfinder class, which is going to get all the glory. So the Pathfinder class will be built based on the lessons learned from this ship. So if this ship has flaws, then those are things that we have the opportunity to fix on the next one. Yeah, I quite like the idea of just having the weapons between the engine pods. Just having an outcropping with a turret on it. Kind of works. Yeah, I don't want the pods to be flat like this. This was just me messing around. I do envision them being rounded. Just do some more choppity chop on this bit, and we shall see what we need. The question is, how many edges did I use when I was making that? 256. Was it? I don't know, it must have been, because they line up. Have a straight cut through there, straight cut through there, possibly 3 through there. Yes, the ship will have energy shields. Probably easier to demonstrate on here. So there's going to be 4, I expect. So if we assume that there will be shield emitters running all the way around the front here, all the way around the ring here, that forms a solid bubble there, and then the same at the rear, and then mirrored underneath. So that will give you 4 shield segments, and they'll connect through here as well. Yeah, we've discussed the shields quite a bit, and the way we're looking at them is for the shields to be sort of non-Newtonian, a bit like the Goa'uld personal shields from Stargate, whereby if something's moving really slowly, it can get through the shield, and then the more kinetic energy an object has, the harder the shield will be, like water. And by converting energy into mass to create the field, what you're essentially doing is you're creating a thick field of mass, which is essentially like water. So the idea is that any fast-moving object like rocks or incoming projectiles, anything kinetic, the shields are extremely good at dissipating that energy. If you have an energy weapon, like a beam laser, then that really heavily drains the shield capacitors, and the shields will remain at 100% the whole time that they're operating until those capacitors run dry. And as soon as those capacitors are dry, that's it, the shield drops. So it won't be the case that the shields will get weaker and weaker and weaker. You're draining the capacitors instead. So combat-wise, the idea is that you're going to be taking shields down with the beam lasers, the energy weapons, and then once the shields are down, you switch to kinetic to pummel the hull. Yeah, that's right. So a shuttle can fly through the shield. You just slow down and push through it. Yeah, I think if you were to create a warp field around, say, a giant lump of tungsten, and then fire that lump of tungsten at superluminal velocities at something, I don't think it matters what kind of shielding it would have. It's going to have a bad day. Yeah. Now, can you imagine something like, let's say, like a bus or a coach sized lump of tungsten? You're talking about a substantial amount of mass. Wrap an FTL coil around that and fire it at something. I think it's going to mess up whatever it hits. Yeah, it's an interesting thought experiment. Think about, if a ship hits a planet whilst at FTL, what is that FTL field going to do to the planet? And I think the common accepted theories with the FTL field is that it will either gather matter at the bow wave of the field and then eject that matter when the field is turned off, or matter is passed to the back of the field and just ejected as like Hawking radiation. But I think something the size of the planet would immediately collapse the field, because it would just be too much mass for the field to dissipate. But the resulting explosion would probably be visible from a long way away. Yeah, we're going to do something similar in StarSim. So I want to make it so that the FTL field effectively does 0 when you reach a certain gravitational threshold. And I guess we need to balance that against black holes. So I want it to be the case where you can be, close to the event horizon of a black hole, going full throttle on the FTL and moving nowhere, and then kind of balance that backwards accordingly. So we need to do a chop here. So like we did at the front of the ship on the last stream, we now need to start chopping this up into actual framework blocks. And again, these are the manufactured pieces. So like we have here, these are the bits that come out of the construction yard and get welded together. Well, the seed space we have in the game now is such that we can fit other galaxies into the game quite easily. So wormholes would be the only way, realistically, you would ever get there. I worked it out that even at 300 light years an hour, it's going to take you over a real life year of constant flying to get to Andromeda. So, we need to employ a wormhole for that. Yeah, we are planning a modular construction system. So if you're familiar with what they're doing for Starfield, it would be sort of along those lines, but obviously taking into account things like electrical cabling and all those things that we need for the game. So you'd probably have a set chassis for a ship, and that chassis would have a power unit and probably the battery arrays. So you'd have like the core bare framework with the power systems in place, and then you just bolt on modular components and rooms and things as needed based on that chassis design. It's the only way really that we can make it work, because everything's fully simulated and all the systems have actual electrical cables and fluids and things. It needs to be modular so that when you connect pieces together, those things line up. Yeah, on the website we do plan to do as much in-game integration as we can. So yeah, in terms of your personal stats, yeah, we could probably do some reporting on that for ships lost and such. Yeah, I think what we would do with the baseline chassis, we'd probably do it in a class-based way. So I don't know, consider the Magellan class, like this one. So the base chassis would consist of perhaps the circular inner core with the reactor and all that already in place. And then it'll be up to the player to then bolt on the additional pieces to finish the rest of the ship, depending on how many rooms they want and what they want those rooms to be. And then, are you going to have weapons rooms, or are you going to have storage rooms? We'll have to think about how we can make that in as flexible way as possible. Yeah, well, a modular construction is really the only way I can think of eventually. Obviously, this isn't happening anytime soon. Giving the player the ability to do more than just customize the interiors. So it wouldn't be a full like Space Engineers, like build your ship from scratch type system. It would definitely have to be modular. But that would be its own standalone expansion at some point, like a shipyards expansion. Yeah, the NPC ships will start off as being exterior only, sort of a procedural kit bash system, pretty much. And then once that's fleshed out and working nicely, then we'll start thinking about adding procedural interiors to those ships as well, so they can be boarded. What I'm doing, Team Ruddy, is I'm basically building out the... that looks horrendous. The cut points. So at the front of the ship, you can see here that it's split into sections, and each one of these sections, from a manufacturing perspective, is made in a factory. So this is the bit that's welded up as a single piece and then sent to the construction yard to be welded together to form, part of the greater vessel. So what I'm doing here is I'm defining what those framework blocks would look like. Generally speaking, the cut lines are down the center of the corridor, so you can probably see it clearer with these ones. So if I take a single framework block, so this would be a single piece that's manufactured in some kind of construction shop, and these edge points here, these are the center lines of corridors, and then when you bolt them together it forms a full corridor. It's how modern naval vessels are built, which is what I'm using for inspiration. Yeah, we've had a couple of people ask about using Space Engine to prototype star systems, and I think yes, as long as they are astrophysically plausible, then yes, absolutely. Problem is the data itself, because there will be an in-game tool for constructing and building star systems. Now I can provide boxes where you can enter in the manual orbital characteristics, so things like the apoapsis and periapsis and all that sort of stuff. So if I provide the ability to enter that data in, then you can just copy paste those numbers from Space Engine and it should come out the same within the game. But you'll also have a tool where you can build the surface of the planet and see it in real time as you tweak the seed numbers. Obviously, that won't look like anything you've made in Space Engine because we've got completely different systems. I'm just trying to work out now where these cut lines need to be. Because there'll be a door here, and this will be the engineering control room here. So we'll have a cut line going through here. So imagine that will be doubled up across there. Yeah, moons should be coming quite soon because we've got a tree structure on the sensors now, so that kind of opens the door to having moons and multi-star systems. Sort that out. We're missing a sweetheart. Sometimes SketchUp likes to put in all these crease lines and everything, which really messes everything up. So you can be separate, you can be separate. So can you. Right, so this block here kind of mirrors this block here. So they're kind of identical. Near enough, and again that one, this one should be reasonably the same. The question then becomes, where is the edge of the shuttle bay going to go to? Now I've got those bits separated, I can just click that and it gets rid of them. Actually, so generally speaking, we have a wall cavity of 40 centimeters, which should be what's in use here. So there, so there-ish should be 40. Yeah, Wes, when I first started doing it, that was definitely on my mind. More so when I'm coding and there's some math I need to sit down and work out. Because I'll be sat there staring at the ceiling trying to work something out, and I'm thinking, like, this isn't interesting, people are getting bored, they're watching a stream and I'm just trying to work out some math. I'm less bothered about it now. I just do what I'm doing. The weapons are going to be energy based, so the idea, at least with the handheld rifles, is that they will fire a particle stream, so just a standard invisible laser with like an electron stream, and then mere milliseconds later it will fire an energy beam along that particle stream, like a lightning bolt, essentially. So you're creating a path for that energy beam and then unleashing all the energy in the capacitors along that path. And you can then define just how charged those capacitors are. So you can do anything from stun someone up to causing a lot of damage. Similar with the ship's main weaponry, in that it's essentially creating a path for the energy to flow along. Yeah, I don't actually know how phasers sort of canonically work in Star Trek. I don't know. I think there's something to do with plasma. I'm not quite sure how. Whether it's a beam of plasma, I don't know. Yeah, a wireless taser, that's probably a good way of looking at it. And except it's a taser that you can turn up to like lightning bolt type voltage. Visually, it's just going to look like a laser beam. So it's not going to be jagged like a lightning bolt. So it's not a lightning gun in that sense. It'll still be a straight beam, but it'll be a straight beam of what is, I suppose, plasma, like a lightning bolt. That's it. It goes from tickle to crispy. Right, so this should be our deck spacing. So that'll be another 100 there for the interdeck bit. Right, so there's our decks. So most of the corridors, I believe, are 3 meters or 2.5? 3. So if we make that 310 then. Right, so if we were going with a standard width corridor, that's the minimum amount of room it would need. So that means that the shuttle bay, and if we go with, again, a standard wall width of 40, still quite a lot of space there. So I think it's safe to assume that these engine pods are going to require a significant support structure around here. So if we assume the absolute minimum width to be that, then that means so the corridor would have to go no closer than that. Add this to the proper template. Right, so this kind of gives us our keep out zone for the shuttle bay. If we get rid of that, it's not needed. Neither is that. Okay, so the space we have for the nacelle pylons is kind of this here. Which means the shuttle bay needs to fit into this here. So where this piece gets cut, I guess really depends on where the support structure is going for the pylons, which means that there becomes a separate segment. By that logic, so would that. Which means that would be a separate piece. That's going to have to be further segmented in the middle somewhere. To be honest, that could just be one solid piece there. So what I'm just doing is I'm just working out where the weld lines need to go. So conveniently, those are split by 1/650. They don't quite fit. Okay, so the 3 shuttle bay sections will be slightly wider than the rest, but that's fine. So it should be 650, 1650, 650. Okay. Unless what if I make that a bit more shapely across the back there, then I can keep that size consistent then. So make that the 1/650. I think I will actually. So to keep the spacing consistent, because the gap between each corridor is 1/650 consistently all the way across right to there. So if I continue that same consistent spacing, that means all of our framework blocks to the same width. And then what I'll do at the back here is I'll have a bit of a lip that goes out. So this will be like a platform on the back of the ship. And the actual doors will be here. So that's an offset of 600 centimeters. So I like the idea of having just a flat section at the back with a ship's name and some landing lights and some markings and that sort of thing on it. Yeah, so when the game's loading, rather than just having a static picture of the ship, it already loads the ship in sections. So you'll see each section being added as the game's loading, which should look quite cool. It'll just be static images, but it will look cool. But I will be making a video of the ship being built. The ship name definitely will display correctly when it's finished. Go ahead and do a join down the middle here, and then make these pieces separate. The question is where to do the join. I suppose it would make sense to do it the longest bit. Okay, buddy. Have a good one. Actually, no, I won't do it the longest bit. I'll do it the shortest bit. Right, so I do that there. Chop that in half down there. That gives us our block pieces. These can just be single blocks, which means really we need to divide that by 3. Okay. So what all that messing about has eventually given us is we have discrete sections now. So each of these will be a framework piece, which means this one also will have to continue across there like that. That's where our cut lines will go. And then we'll just have a separate piece at the back just for the lip. Yeah, well, as it happens, I'm actually drinking beer myself right now. I'm drinking Exmoor Gold Real Ale. I have a speckled hen in the fridge. Tesco are doing bottles of real ale for £4 for £7 at the moment, so I've been taking advantage of that. Not quite happy with that going across there like that. I think I'm going to line it up with this one. If we do a line across there, another one across there, so sorts out the RCS bit as well. One. Kind of similar to there, to be honest, which is good. Right, so now that we've done all of that, we can actually cut out pieces. So we'll have to do a cut across here. So we need to draw ourselves a cut plane. this last piece at the back, I may as well include that 600 centimeters on it, because it's going to be a funny shape. And most of that is just going to be a flat bit sticking out the back. We also need to cut it across there as well. Right, so you are a section, as are you, and you, and you, and you. Ooh. Oh, and that one's gone a bit weird. Just fix that. That one. Okay, one last cut to do. Oh, of course. I was wondering why I had a little weird bit there, but it's because this should be part of this. There, makes more sense. I'll have a play with that. I imagine we'll have quite a wide array of different designs for the nacelles. So we find one that speaks to us. Why can't I soften that edge? Weird. Okay, we're almost done with the choppity chop. So we have got that section there. There. That needs chopping in two. As well as that one. So that would go down there. Just gonna mirror that. Actually, I've got a new mirror tool now. That's no good. Right, so that's a framework block. That is chopping up. This one, where are you getting chopped? So from there across there. Object. Hello Cloud, welcome to the stream. Yeah, and I think we're almost ready to start exporting. I just need to do the underside piece. I'm going to need this curve for that. These bits are fine as is though, so I think we can just go ahead and explode that. So So this big piece here is too big and does need chopping up. However, I haven't defined what's going in this space yet, so it may have another corridor yet. We'll see. We'll see what I end up doing in terms of the layout in there. Right, let's go ahead and do the E-deck versions. So I need to cut this down the middle now, just to separate the two pieces out. Right, so that means they all need to be turned into components. I might retweak this bit at some point, depending on where the attachment points go for the engine pods. Might be the case that I put that straight again across there, and then use these two pieces as the half and half for the supports for the pylons. And then maybe just extend this one down just to make it one solid piece. Kind of, if I were to do that, support structure would kind of take up that kind of space, which means that the engines would have to move that way a bit. It would look kind of more like that. Bearing in mind that that's going to be chopped off a bit there, yeah. I think it definitely wants to be further back then. So if I were to align those to be aligned to that, so that becomes the midpoint for the cells. Those there. Halfway through there would be 825, and do another 825 there. Right, so that's all perfectly lined up. I think that's probably the best place for it. So the bottom side underneath here is largely a mirror of the top, except for the fact it is going to have cargo holds and thing underneath. So I don't quite know yet how far back they're going to extend. I mean, initially I was thinking there, maybe a bit further. Let's see how much space they take up. Section. Everything that's left should be the lower section. Just debating a minute then, just making the cut further down so it's kind of between the decks, but I actually need the top of E deck to bolt E deck onto, so yeah, it does need to be where it is. Yeah, I'd love to have some kind of cargo loader. Having a full-on mech suit is probably pushing pushing our luck a little bit. Would be cool though. I'll just make these unique pieces. Technically they should be the same as the ones above, but I'll make them unique anyway for now. Yeah, well, there definitely will be a cargo elevator. That much is for sure. before I do this one, I will line up all these vertices. SketchUp's really not a fan of how big this model is now. It's starting to suffer from floating point issues. Come on, pop into place. Come on, you can do it. There we go, all lined up. This bit here is a bit janky, so I'm going to cut off this section, subdivision mesh it, and then put it back so it's all nice and smooth. Oops, put that in the wrong place. Hang on, which one am I even working on? Now there actually is a space drone in the game. If you look in the room just outside the bridge, there are some camera drones. I recently made them quicker so you can fly around the ship in them. Hello, autosave. Yeah, I made the acceleration on them exponential, so when you scroll the mouse wheel, you can now make them go pretty quick. Ah, nearly there. Yeah, well done on the new job. Hope it works out good for you. I did, yeah. So they're okay now. Yeah, the only issue that remains now with slowing down the drones is if you're already moving really quickly, when you scroll the mouse wheel to put it into slow mode, then it calculates the deceleration based on your current setting, not the current speed, which means you'll drift for ages. So you kind of have to slow down first and then change to a lower speed. I'll improve that at some point though. Phew, okay, there we go. That is the back end of the ship, at least encased in hull. Obviously it still has a lot of design work to do, but that should at least make it airtight. Just need to thicken some of these pieces so they're not single-sided. Yeah, the ship will have hull plating, which will take care of all that sort of stuff. What I'm building here, this is like the inner skin of the outer hull, and on top of all of this will be all the hull plating itself. Okay, Peter, have a good one, and thanks for watching. I do apologise if this is very dull. This is one of those kind of necessary evils of game dev. Sometimes you just have to do dull stuff. Like sizing panels. Right, so the next fun thing to do yes, clouds. So the outer hull plating will be individual pieces, and they will be damageable and repairable, just the same as the interior panels. They'll probably be about twice the size of the interior panels, if not 4 times the size. So most likely it's going to be an external work bot type thing that you pilot to fix them. Yeah, something that would be cool to do is, once this is actually finished and polished and everything's where we want it to be, would be to hand it all over to a professional actual shipbuilding engineering company and say, can you draw up these schematics professionally as if it was a real world naval vessel? I'd be fascinated to see that. Yeah, the brig works in the demo absolutely fine. The brig doesn't currently work because I took the floor away, so when you brig people they just fall into space. But now that I have added framework back, I'll have a look at making that reachable again on foot. These cutouts here, that's going to be the RCS hardware. So you can probably see it better on this one. So the RCS will be in here, and the back ones and the front ones are sort of equidistant from the middle of the ship, so it's perfectly balanced. DevX, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, some gamers, or just generally, gamers tend to be quite knowledgeable about game dev, especially the ones that are into modding, that sort of thing. But yeah, I guess if you don't have any interest or experiencing in modding or anything on the back end side of gaming, it can be surprising just how much effort and hard work goes into game dev, and just how long things take. You know, just doing something like this, it just takes a long time. To be honest, we haven't really looked at the cyber warfare aspect of things. Like, once we add the data center and start looking at the data flow around the ship, that sort of thing will become more apparent. But all of the internal comms is hardwired. It's all done with fiber optics. I mean, the whole ship is a giant Faraday cage, so wireless isn't going to work too well. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, we definitely want alien viruses and things to be a part of the game. The question is, how are they part of the game? And then how do you resolve them? So it seems definitely a science-based gameplay mechanic. The thing that I've always considered to be the easiest way of implementing that would be if you have a piece of alien hardware and you decide to make use of that without analyzing it or researching it first, then you don't know whether or not it has some kind of virus on it. So if you don't do your due diligence when you're inserting something into the ship, then you could end up infecting the ship with a virus, and then the science team need to jump through some hoops to resolve that. Yeah, I've played Pulsar for all of about 10 minutes. I got it just to check it out, and yeah, I think you're right. It's very combat focused from what I remember. I had fun sort of manning a turret and then running around as everything was on fire. But it's kind of what we're doing in a really basic way. So we're basically taking what Pulsar are doing and doing it 1,000 times more complicated every step of the way. Which is why it's taking so long. I suppose another way you could look at it is that Pulsar is quite arcadey in its approach, whereas Star Sim's like completely the opposite end of the spectrum. We're like hard sci-fi. Yeah, mission generation is something that we'll have to build a tool set for when it comes to doing the first expansion. So when we start doing the story mode and all the plot and all of that, we obviously need a way of automatically positioning things like NPCs. So we want an event-driven system so that NPCs react to events that occur aboard the ship. But in terms of plot, we want, for example, the captain and the first officer to hold a conversation whilst walking to a position on the ship. So maybe they start a conversation on the bridge and then they continue that conversation all the way down to the shuttle bay. So we need those NPCs to be following world markers, points of interest, and triggering dialogue as they traverse their way through the ship. And the only way really to do that is to position those things manually, because you need to be giving those NPCs XYZ coordinates for them to go to those locations. And then you have the situation where if say the captain paths to the next point of interest and the first officer, the pathing screws up in some way and they don't manage to get there, then you could get the captain continuing the dialogue when the first officer hasn't actually got there yet. So it's going to be quite a complex system to put together. Actually, Sea of Thieves is a game I haven't played yet. A lot of people have said that it's very similar to what we're doing, just on a ship. So it's something I should check out. Yeah, VR is going to be coming, a test version of VR is going to be coming alongside the next demo updates. So I'll get the demo update polished and done and released, and then kind of immediately on the back of that, I'll try and get out a VR test. And all the VR test is going to consist of is most likely just a teleport locomotion and the ability to press UI panels in the game world. So you'll be able to navigate around the ship, press all the UIs, and that's it. That's like literally it for the test. But at least as a proof of concept, it shows the game in VR space. Yeah, well, you can tie the teleport function to the nav mesh, so you can only teleport to places where the nav mesh exists, which helps to keep everything where it should be. Yep, sounds good, Triple Helix. We're happy for you to help there. Hey Jim, welcome to the stream. Will there be a ship's or captain's log? Yes. So in the captain and XO offices, there's obviously a data terminal on the desk, which isn't working right now. But we definitely want the ability to be able to type in log entries and that sort of thing. I don't think that's particularly a Star Trek proprietary thing. That's pretty standard fare. The communication station is going to work very similarly to the sensors, in that rather than having like sensor sources where you see planets and other ships and things, you'll have radio sources, I suppose, and you'll see things like distress signals, incoming hails, that sort of thing, available targets that you can hail. It's probably going to be not quite as involved as the sensors, but very similar in terms of how you use it. If the ship is receiving an incoming hail, then it will be flashing up on the sensors, on the comms UI, that incoming hail, and then you just accept or decline. And if you accept it, then that hail will come up on the screen. And if you alert the captain to the fact that there's a hail, then they can choose to display that on the holo display. If they don't, then all that communication will take place on the comms console itself. Okay, Ian, have a good one. I don't actually have an Oculus device to test on. It might be worth me picking up an old Oculus just so I can check it out. Steam VR uses OpenVR, I think. OpenXR, I can't remember now. It's been a couple of years since I worked with it last. Generally speaking, if the headset works with Steam VR, then it should work. Yeah, I'm sure that Oculus headsets can work with Steam VR. We have a Midi piano now, so if you've got a Midi keyboard, it will actually play through the piano in-game. More instruments to be added as and when I work out how to do it. Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can get hold of some Oculus hardware, and then I can test that properly. Right, so we need to start getting this exported. time to start filling some of these gaps. So, what are we looking at? So we're looking at ring 4 meshes. Yeah, if I just load it up a sec. Okay, well, it's not playing. I'll have to work out why. That's interesting. But you can see there, as I'm pressing the keys on my MIDI piano, it's detecting the notes in the game. Not sure why it's not working. Interesting. I shall investigate that before I put tonight's build out. All good, thanks Grimlock. I'm just building the back end of the ship. So we want that one, that one. D-deck aft position 1, E-deck aft position 1. Yeah, don't worry, all good. It's odd that it's not working, so I shall have to investigate. But I'll do it later. It's all good. Didn't actually think to check these to make sure they are actually generating decent collisions. It's not terrible. If you use complex collision as simple, it uses the nanite's fallback mesh for the mesh collisions, which most of the time is alright, but sometimes it gets a bit weird. So the next dev build will be tonight after the stream. The next public demo update will be it's waiting on two things essentially. It's the outer hull of the ship being more sealed in, and to be honest, that should be done as of the next 20 minutes. I do still want to clean it up a bit, but for the most part, that should be okay. That and the bigger job, which is the sensors and getting all the planetary scanning gameplay in, because that means not just polishing up the sensors UI itself, but actually building the data for that UI, including the presence of aliens on the surfaces of worlds, or the presence of life on the surfaces of exoplanets. So a good couple of weeks or more, at least. Before I drag them in, just make sure I'm on the right level. D-deck framework sheet. D-deck after position 1 sheet. Okay, that's you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to GM mode. It'll be something that we implement, at least in a basic way, as soon as possible, really. I think it's going to add a lot, just for the ability to do storytelling and create gameplay. Go ahead and do all the D-deck ones first, and then do E-deck after. So handheld weapons are needed relatively soon, because I do want to test out the interior damage model and the ability to shoot and respawn and all that sort of thing. But we do need the character system to support all of that. So I was hoping we'd have a character person on board already that can sort all that out and run with it. And that might still be the case if we can find someone. But we'll just have to see on that. I don't want to just put the ability to shoot people in the game without also adding the ability to turn off friendly fire. Because what we don't want is people trolling people's multiplayer games by just running in and shooting everyone. Need a new folder here. Hello Alfie, welcome to the stream. Yeah, the ring is it's kind of the whole of the new design really. It's very much kind of function over form, because the way the technology works, being an Alcubierre drive, you need that ring to create the field, and rather than having two rings, as is popularized in the Alcubierre designs, I've squished the rings together, so it still has two rings, front, fore and aft. They're just part of the same structure. Realistic or not, I think it looks much nicer that way. And then when it comes to the the overall shape of the ship, putting a ring on a circle looks ridiculous. So the ship needed to be stretched out just to incorporate the ring. And this is what we've ended up with. Which, yeah, I'm quite happy with it. I wish it was less flat from the side. I would definitely prefer a more shapely design. But we'd have to have 6 or 7 more decks in order to do that. And the ship's just not big enough for that many decks. So with the medical gameplay, it's going to work along the lines of the NPC or a player come in with a physical ailment, and either it's obvious what's wrong with them, like they've been shot or they've got a burn or a broken leg, something really obvious, in which case the treatment for it will be obvious. Or they could have some alien pathogen, and the treatment for that won't be quite as obvious, and there'll be different chemicals you can inject which have different effects. So it's a kind of you need to kind of look at the symptoms and then see which of those remedies match those symptoms, and the way that you'll be implementing that would be via like a reusable injection device which you put into a machine, and the machine fills it with the chemical of choice, and you'll select that from a drop-down menu on a UI. So you kind of scroll through the UI looking for the chemical that you want, select it, it will put it in the syringe, and then you take that and inject the patient with whatever that chemical is. If you made the right choice, then it will solve their problem. If you made the wrong choice, then it will make them worse, or it will have some other effect. When it comes to more severe issues, then there will be an operating table, very much like the one from the Passengers movie, or one of the most recent Alien movies. So you get them on the table, and then the machine performs the physical surgery. But you have to select which procedure you want the machine to perform. So again, you're scrolling through a list and making sure you pick the correct procedure to match the ailment that they have. And if you pick the wrong procedure, again, you can make them worse or have no effect. Yeah, this is the surgery stream. Yeah, so the medical gameplay, it's not going to require a knowledge of anatomy, so it won't be that in depth. However, there will be. I will be researching it at depth, and I will be taking people on as advisors who are experienced in the medical world, and we're trying to make it as realistic as possible within reason for the game. Hi Nick, thank you very much. No, Alfie's not in bed, he's actually in the stream. Yes, I saw him join about 5 minutes ago. Yeah, we could certainly employ the ring for the gravity gen, but again, it's about how that field is managed. We'd have to invert it 90 degrees somehow. Yeah, so when it comes to alien diseases, obviously, with an entire galaxy of procedural races, that's also an entire galaxy of procedural pathogens, and they will fit into pigeonholes. So, regardless of the name of the pathogen, it will have an effect from a library of different possible effects, and there will be a corresponding treatment for that effect. So you could have billions of different named pathogens, but maybe just a few hundred actual ailments that result from those pathogens. Yeah, so dying within the game, I'm treating the NPC crew as essentially the respawn mechanic for the players. So if you look at it as having 200 lives, so when you die as a character, you replace one of the NPCs. So every time the player dies, there's one NPC less on the ship. And you can do that 200 times until you're the last person standing, and then if you die and there are no longer any NPCs, then that's it, that's game over. There's no one left alive on the ship. Thanks for joining, Nick. Yeah, poisoning will definitely be possible. Definitely. Okay, we've got our aft RCS thrusters in place. The Magellan has 200 crew quarters, and that's designed for essentially a 3-shift rotation with about 66 people on per shift. So you've got 66 working, 66 asleep, and another 66 just knocking about doing entertainment things. Yeah, returning home to Earth is... yeah, it's definitely something that initially, and perhaps still currently, we're looking at not so much a game over scenario, but like a mission end scenario. So, the whole premise is that you're going off to explore space, and that means going away from Sol and not coming back until you're finished. So if you come back to Earth and kind of dock at the space dock and disembark the ship, then essentially what you're doing is you're handing in that mission. You're saying, right, this is my mission complete, we've returned, we're here to restock and resupply and replace any lost crew members. So you'll then be able to go out on another mission with the same ship and crew, plus any extras you've to backfill people you've lost, with everything fully repaired and fully restocked. If you lose the ship and the ship is destroyed, then you lose the ability to continue with that ship and crew, because that ship and crew are lost. So you'll have a brand new ship and a brand new crew. BC5, yes, I'm actually inspired by Frostpunk. I've not played Frostpunk myself, but I've kind of watched Claire play it over her shoulder, and I love how when you inevitably fail at Frostpunk, it gives you this really kind of cool story almost of how you performed, and it would be nice to do something along those lines where it kind of lists your achievements and how many first contacts did you make, how far did you explore, how far from Earth did you get during that mission, all those sorts of things. That would be good to have on there, kind of just like a sort of bookend the mission. So here's your mission report, here's how well you did, that's essentially the mission over, and then you are now free to launch a new mission with the same ship and crew, retaining any upgrades and things you've made along the way. Yeah, you make a good point there, Xenovant. I think the galaxy is vast enough that you don't have to travel far from Earth before everything's new. You could, obviously there's 6 directions you could fly off in, but that sphere of direction that you could go in. The galaxy is a huge place, and even just tooling around Sol, that you're going to find systems and races that you've not encountered before reasonably close to Sol. Plus, it's not like you're lore-wise starting again. It would be another mission. So it's the people that you've met are still there, and because you're essentially continuing your mission, your career within the game, if you've met them before and you go back there, they will remember you from last time. So you could revisit those people you visited in the past to see if anything's changed. Yeah, so if you completely lose your ship and crew and have to launch a new mission with a new ship and crew, then there will be persistence in the world beyond that. So if your previous ship and crew had met an alien species and then you return to that same planet with a whole new ship and crew, they'll still know about your species because they have met you before. So whilst they haven't met you personally because you're a new ship and crew, they still have met humans before. So that persistence will continue, even though you're an entirely new ship and crew. Belwyn, yeah, you make a good point there about if you're on a planet and the ship is destroyed in orbit, what happens? Well, essentially, either you live out the rest of your life on that planet, or you force a game over scenario, like self-destruct your shuttle or something. Essentially, you're stuck there. Is the straightforward answer. If your ship is lost and you've got no way of getting back to it, then that's it. You're stuck there. Killer Nova, yeah. So there's going to be a difference between the procedural races and the handcrafted races. The handcrafted races probably won't be added until we actually start building the single player campaign, and that's going to be after early access is out. So we want to get early access done and polished and all the procedural stuff done, and then we'll work on the story campaign. The procedural races will have procedural lore, and everything about them will be procedural. The handcrafted races are going to have handcrafted story, histories, locations, empires, and all that sort of thing. Killer Nova, yeah, so the lore, at least at this point in the game, is that you are literally the first ship out there exploring beyond Sol. So humanity hasn't done deep space exploration before. The Magellan class in particular is an experimental vessel, which is the first ever vessel to go out there and explore the stars. So there is no rescue mission because you're literally the only ship out there. So if you get stranded on an alien world, then I think I like Triple Helix's suggestion there, where rather than just climbing in your shuttle and self-destructing it, there should be some various game over options you can pick from. I like the idea of just saying, I'm going to set up camp and live here now. This is my life now, living on this moon. And obviously, that's losing your ship is a game over scenario. If you don't happen to be on it at the time, it's still a game over scenario, just not an immediate one. Yeah, the NPC crew will be completely capable of manning the vessel. So if you're on the planet, then the NPC crew will be looking after the ship, and someone would have been left in command. So if you're the captain, you'll have an XO. If you're either in multiplayer and another player is the XO, then there will be an NPC left in command. You won't just leave the ship drifting with no one running it, and whatever NPC that is will handle whatever situation occurs. So if you and your online friends are all on a planet and the NPC crew is managing the ship, you're kind of relying on them to get the ship out of trouble if trouble happens. Generally speaking, it shouldn't, because when you're going around and exploring, you will come across an alien race or an alien ship through the act of exploring. If you're just parked around a planet and you're parked in orbit, it's very unlikely that an alien vessel is going to arrive at that planet. So certainly not a hostile one anyway. The ship is it's got loads and loads of bulkheads all over the corridors, so they'll close automatically if a vacuum's detected. Admiral gameplay is essentially no different than the Captain and an XO. So the Captain and the XO have equal ability aboard the ship. They're exactly the same as one another. And an Admiral would be the same. It's essentially just a command role. Yeah, for sure. All the doors will be open. So if the computer like auto shuts a bulkhead, then a crew member need only just press the open button. If it's like full vacuum on the other side, then you'll need to enter the engineering override code to be able to do that. Yeah, it might be the case that you and your engineering crew are all wearing, encounter suits or EVA suits, and you need to open the bulkheads to go and repair a hole in the hull from the inside. In which case, you would have already sealed the door behind you. Yeah, using gas giants as a tactical device, yeah, I'd say absolutely. So the way it's going to have to work is that there's going to have to be a point where air pressure or just pressure on the outer hull is a factor, and the lower you get into the atmosphere, the greater that pressure is going to be. So it's about which ship can take the most pressure. And if your ship can take more pressure than the one chasing you, then yeah, absolutely. You can use that to your tactical advantage. And we'll just have it so that the pressure increases until your ship pops. Yeah, so with the way different locations in the game are going to work, essentially, how can I explain it? So the main ship, the interior is static, it's not moving. We move space around the ship. So when you go down to a planetary surface, again, the planetary surface is static. And that's just like a long way below the ship, so far that it's not rendered. If you were to jump off of the ship without any of the protection in place to put you back on it, then you would actually land on the planetary surface. And the same is true for things like shuttles or other ships. The interior of those vessels are static and hidden below the main ship interior. And all we're doing is we're transitioning players between those static interiors. And what you see out of the window, i.e. space moving around the ship, is offset depending on which location the player is in. So if you're in a shuttle, then you see the galaxy from the perspective of the shuttle's location, and if you're in the main ship, you see it from the main ship's location. And the same is true for planets. So you can have players distributed like in any of those locations all simultaneously, because all we're actually doing is teleporting those players seamlessly between all these different static environments. Yeah, it's a massive Z lie. It's all smoke and mirrors. So when you rock up to an alien space station and you get off to go and explore its interior, when you get into the shuttle, you're teleported to a shuttle static environment. You then fly that shuttle around and the outside, moves as you'd expect it to. You then disembark the shuttle inside whatever your destination is, so this alien space station. You're then teleported seamlessly to the static interior of that alien space station, allowing you to explore its interior at your leisure. Now, I've run some tests on those systems, and for the most part, at a very basic level, it's working. But obviously, that's going to be quite a lot of development to get it all working seamlessly. But that's how it's going to work. Yeah, moving space around the ship stops us from being able to do real-time landings. Because space is the thing that's moving, so of course the planets are moving and all the trees and rocks and squirrels are all moving on the planet, and obviously the game engine can't do that. So all the environments that you're walking around on have to be static. So we just move the vision of space around the ship, which means we can have massive starships without any concern about performance, because in reality it's not moving. The game's going to use a positional based noise overlay to render damage. So if you imagine every wall panel, every floor panel, every ceiling panel can have physicalized damage. So the static mesh that represents those objects can display damage. If we use a noise function for that, it means the damage displayed on each one is different. So it's not just a case of swapping out the mesh with a damaged version, because then you'd have the same damaged mesh all the way down a corridor, which would look stupid. But if we use a noise function, then we can make that damage unique per panel. Yeah, so alien life will come in all shapes and sizes, and we'll be building up a catalogue of classes of life. So, bipedal carbon-based life forms would be humans, and there'll be lots of other, bipedal carbon-based life. But then we'll also have, various numbers of limbs of carbon-based life, all the way down to ethereal life, which are energy-based life forms. So there's going to be, any sci-fi trope you can think of, we'll add somewhere. Yeah, it'll be everything, literally right up to beings of energy that have no physical presence. Yeah, Arachnid is an interesting one. And no, we won't be adding an arachnophobia mode, because we're not doing a scary spider game. Yeah, there may be creatures with multiple legs, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're spiders. You should have been here for the beginning of the stream. Literally, as I was starting the stream, there was a spider crawling up my leg, which I had to kind of shake off, and it ran off onto my skirting board somewhere. Yeah, the AI species within the game are all going to be procedural, apart from the ones we do manually. Thing is, where I live here, we're literally right on the edge of the Exmoor National Park. So, literally on the other side of the road from where I live, it's just hills and forests and lots of wildlife. So, we get quite a lot of creepy crawlies making their way down. Yeah, sure, will do. Just need to import these last little bits, and then yeah, I'll do a quick walk around, and then I shall call it a night because it's 11:30 here, and it is getting late. All good, Grimlock. Always a pleasure. I used to kind of dread the streams. Not because I didn't want to do them, but because I was really nervous. But I've actually come to look forward to them these days. Why have I got ring 6? Did I just import the wrong ones? Okay, so just one more layer, and that should be the back done. Yeah, I think you're right though. I think this is the best way to do game dev. Because I guess game dev isn't an insular thing. You're making a form of entertainment, and you're making it for a community. So to not involve that community and be involved with that community just doesn't seem to make sense to me. It just seems like the right thing to do. I wouldn't want it any other way. As I've said before, I certainly get a lot less done when I'm working on stream, because you spend time answering questions and then you kind of forget what you're doing, or at least I do because I'm scatterbrained. But it's still good. I think it's still a very valuable thing to do. I think I would definitely recommend to any indie dev that stream your work, stream what you're doing, because it really helps involve you with the community. Yeah, I think in terms of idea space and just throwing ideas at the wall, the streams are brilliant for that. Well, like tonight, for example, who said it? Hang on, let me scroll up. So Triple Helix mentioned the fact that if you're stranded on an alien world, rather than just self-destructing and suiciding yourself to end the game, can we have an option to choose that you're going to live out your life on that planet now? That's an idea that has literally come from a conversation on the stream, and there are many examples like that. There's definitely a danger that you can kind of end up with like design by committee, which is never a good thing. That's when you get the whole too many chefs thing happening. But that aside, I think it's extremely valuable. Right, there we go. There is the shape of the ship. That's all the upper hull done. Still need to do the bottom bit, but it's the upper hull. So obviously it needs engines and it needs the bottom bit adding, which I shall do off stream. And we also need to do some connections there. Why are those bits missing? Okay, that bit's there. Missing a piece there. I'm going to try and locate that. Well, as of tonight's build, hopefully there'll be no holes you can fall out of. Although the back of the ship is not sealed, so you can still run out the back. At least we have a finished hull. Right, I shall do a very quick overview of what's new. So, well, at least what's new in terms of the demo, and then I shall call it tonight. Well, I guess we'll start here really. So you now have a YouTube player in the conference room. All you do is click load URL, paste in a video. Well, I may as well do that just to demonstrate it. It sadly doesn't work with live streams. I'm using a plugin to do the YouTube functionality, and that plugin doesn't support live streams. I need to contact the developer and see if we can get that added. But yeah, if you've just got a video, I shall find one of our videos rather than playing a random one, because I don't want to get any copyright strikes. So I've got my YouTube URL, I click that, I paste it in there, I press enter, it says loading, and there we have the video playing. And the cool thing about it is that the screen actually projects light as well, so if you look at the light on the floor, it's very cool. There's like proper audio occlusion, and you can like hear it behind the wall. Kind of funny. Oh, lost my live chat. The sound quietening is using visibility occlusion. Yeah, it's an Unreal 5 thing. It also works through the door as well, so I've used a collision channel for it. So when the door closes, it'll occlude. So that's new. Obviously we have the piano, which I will test that again in a minute. Let's zoom. Okay, yeah, piano's still not working, don't know why. Should investigate that. So a lot of the framework structure of the ship has been really refined now. And I've started putting together more permanent kind of wall panels and things. It's all got like proper bolts and stuff. And you can, at the moment, if you press I, you can hide the interiors and things to see all the attachment points and see how the ship is built behind the scenes. Just a nice little feature. Take the lift while it's here. So the galactic space has changed a lot since the demo. There's an awful lot more there now. We've now got 17,600,000 and something real world stars, which is a radius of 2,000 light years. And then the big thing that's changed is the UIs and the sensors generally. So the GPS mode is now actually, it has a point, it actually does something now. So you can browse to another sector and then you can see all the objects in that sector. So if we do this, you can see that the manual location there is changing. So not only does it tell you the population of that sector, it also tells you the political state of that sector. So this is part of generating life in the galaxy, like step one of generating that life. So this sector, on the generation on the back end, will generate independent worlds. So all of the aliens that generate there won't be affiliated with one another in any way. Whereas on the sector adjacent to that, it will generate multiple factions. So you'll have, 2 or more factions of alien species that will have a relationship. They might be all at peace, they might be at war, they could be trading partners. That's what will be sort of chipped away at as we delve deeper and deeper into the procedural generation. Now the lift just operates on its own, it's not connected to power yet. You can zoom in and out of the galaxy, and you can change the focus mode, so you can either focus on the ship, zoom in and out of where the ship is, or you can change the focus to the galactic center and zoom out there. So it's just a lot of quality of life stuff for the galaxy side of things. And the main thing I wanted to get into this was like awareness of galactic region. So the fact that the galaxy has, astrophysically correct regions was never obvious, but now it is. You can see that each galactic sector has a proper region associated with it. The long-range sensors are now much longer range, so they go out all the way to 150 light years. So you can see there, this is actually, you can see the shape of the real-world data where things have been scanned. I need to do more backfill on this to fill some gaps. Yeah, there's a lot more data there. On the medium range, we've now got, again, so we've got the ability to zoom in and out smoothly, and it also displays the temperature regions on star systems now, just to make science easier. See all the regions. I need to adjust the habitable zone because it's not quite right for Sol. And this isn't done manually for Sol, it's procedurally generated, so I need to just have a look at what it classes as the habitable zone, because I think it's being a little bit too restrictive. And that's volumetric as well, so you can kind of run through it. Yeah, Mars is there. Oh, in the habitable zone, yeah, so Mars should be like on the edge of the habitable zone there, and Venus should be just on the edge of it around there. So it needs to move out ever so slightly and be expanded. And that's essentially where I've set the boundaries for what it considers to be habitable. Those numbers just need tweaking. It's essentially a set of Kelvin values. So if it's above so and so Kelvin value, it's habitable, and that's just not quite right. That needs a tweak. I think I went from if it's 0 degrees C as an equilibrium temperature, then that's the cutoff for habitable. But obviously you could have a planet with a much colder equilibrium temperature than that, and yet it has liquid water because of greenhouse effect. So I need to take all that into account. And you also have the short range button now, which gives you a planet on the holo display. And this is the mode which needs the most work. Obviously we got Earth here, and there will be a tree structure here, so it will have the moon and any orbiting stations and things. And all the data it displays here will be relevant to what's on the surface of the world. So that's more relevant for exoplanets. So if you fly into a star system, you can now view the planet as a big ball on the holo display, and then see here what life might exist there. So is there wildlife? Are there other plants? Are there animals? Is it just simple bacteria, or is it complex animal life? And it's the life generation and the algorithms relating to that life generation, which is kind of the last thing I need to do to round off all the work on this UI. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and of course, the whole UI itself has been overhauled. Sure. Well, that's pretty much everything anyway. So obviously, the ship's different now. If I quickly hop into the external camera just to show you the ship, let's face the sun. Here is our new vessel, and obviously it's going to look a lot nicer once it's got engines and all of its hull plating. There's all this white plating on top here. The whole thing will be covered with that. All the windows will be done properly, and the stairwells at the side there will have proper domes on top of them, and the park area at the front will have its big window. Yeah, it's a flip-flop. I can see the similarity to Voyager. It's obviously a lot flatter than Voyager. It's kind of flatter and wider. It's like a really squished Voyager. Plus the honking great ring. Oh yeah, and it reckons Earth is over there, which it isn't because it's right there. Right, send myself to the brig. Okay. That's not the brig button. No, debugs. I fell out of the brig. So if I unbrig myself a minute. If I run down to deck with that, E-deck I guess, we go aft on E-deck. As you can see, work in progress. Things are not quite what they should be. So that's actually the brig over there. So there used to be a floor here, which is how the brigs worked. But yeah, once I add the floor underneath, which is just whenever you import these meshes and put them underneath there, and then the brig will be working again. If you mean the fact that the stairs are currently broken, then yes. Like here. What's happened? Looks like there was a wild party in engineering. You can see here that the decks have been moved apart. So we've got this separation between the decks now, which we didn't have before. And because of that, the stairs don't reach. Yeah, every deck is essentially an extra 50 centimeters thicker. So yeah, everything's kind of moved apart. The same is true in here as well. Oh yeah, see. So you can see the floor here is in the wrong position. Because without it, I mean, the ship is already quite pancakey. So if you imagine this ship without all the extra space between decks, it was even flatter than it is now, and it just looked a bit silly. So we needed the extra space between the decks anyway, because only having 50 centimeters between decks was a little bit restrictive. So making it the full meter has really helped. Okay, well, I shall leave you with a pretty picture of the ship in front of Earth. Pose, pose, pose. And it's turned into another monster stream, nearly 4 hours. I imagine Claire's probably waiting to go to bed, and I've been here keeping her up. So I shall go and do my usual, grab a cup of tea, stretch my legs, and allow Claire to go to bed. Thanks again, everyone, and yeah, so next stream on Sunday, 8 PM, usual time, and I shall see you all there. Bye for now.